And in this episode of the Shadow Empire Strategy Podcast, we're going to switch gear a little bit. We're going to move on from the models to a topic I feel that is a little bit misunderstood in Shadow Empire. I'm going to talk today about the graphics, and I'm going to invite the community to have a bit of a discussion about the graphics in Shadow Empire. Now, this is a comment that I see quite often in the discussion forums, on Matrix, over at Steam, even in our Explorminate group. There's always somebody who turns up and says, I kind of like the idea of Shadow Empire, but I just can't play a game with graphics that bad. And this kind of triggers me. I really, really hate this comment. And the reason is because I think that there are elements of Shadow Empire's graphics that are definitely underwhelming. However, the overall graphical presentation of the game is really, really good. And it's much, much better than many games of its ilk. I think the reason why people have this opinion is partly because of the stratagem cards and some of the event graphics. And they're kind of made with sort of 3D models, and some of them look a little bit goofy. They do look quite amateurish, and that is, I think, probably the worst offender in all of Shadow Empire. Now, I don't think they're terrible. There is a really, really great mod pack by the French artist Pymus, who also did maps for Dominions, and he's done some graphics for Explorminate. He's a superb artist, and there's a map pack out there, or a stratagem card pack out there, that will change those graphics if you want. I don't use it just because I'm kind of used to the base game ones now, and I find them, even though they are a little bit clunky and a bit strange, I just kind of got used to them. I kind of like them now. But I think those are really the worst offenders when it comes to the graphics in Shadow Empire, and I've seen worse, okay? If anybody who's played Space Empires 4 will know what I'm talking about. There are some 4X games with really, really kind of goofy looking graphics by today's standards. But Shadow Empire was a game released in 2020, I think. So you know, it does seem a little bit more difficult to excuse. I am ready to admit that those are, that is not Shadow Empire putting its best face forward. However, the graphics that are really important in the game are the ones that are really there to bring you into the immersion of the game. So there are three areas specifically that I think Shadow Empire absolutely excels in the graphics and is far better than many other 4X and wargame type games that are on the market right now. These are the asset graphics, the graphics from the models, and the map terrain graphics themselves. I think all three of them are superbly well done. Really, really, really good. And if you feel this is a little bit of an overstatement, I want you to consider the following. Every single asset and model has its own individual graphics for each individual level, for all the tech levels in the models, for all the different model types, the different weapon types, the different armor types. There are multiple tank models. There are multiple buggy graphics. The artists have really, really gone to town on putting tons and tons of effort into all these different models. They are all indistinguishable at a glance. So you don't always have to go into the model information screen to be able to see what is on that model. And when you're playing a long game, it really, really helps the immersion to know that a specific model type looks a specific way. And they don't all just look the same like they do in most 4X games. The effort that has gone into the graphics in Shadow Empire is exemplary, in my opinion. It's the same with the assets. Each asset has up to 7 different levels of operational capability, and each one has got its own graphics. They're all different. The amount, like I say, the amount of effort that has been put into the graphics in this game was really, really high, I think. And finally, we've got the map terrain graphics. Now, again, our friend Daz Tactic, he actually made a little mod to kind of add some extra graphics just to show the difference between high mountains and low mountains, I think. I don't use it. I don't think it's necessary. I can see now the difference between, the high mountains, the low mountains, the grassy mountains, the non-grassy mountains. All the different hex types have all got their own unique graphics, and they're just really well done. At a glance, you can tell what they are. So from a utility perspective, you usually don't have to hover over them to see what they are. And they also look great. And again, the different planet generation types, there's so many different colors. So the planets just can look completely different depending on whether you're playing on a map with a lot of biological matter, lots of cloud forests, whether it's a desert planet, whether it's an ice planet. It just generates these really, really wonderful looking maps, and it all adds to the immersion. And that's often an overlooked thing in these games, right? It's the way that it immerses the player in the imagination of the game. You can really feel your troops kind of marching over these mountains, through these jungles, digging down in some rocky desert, bunkering up against the enemy who are about to throw themselves at them in hordes as the bombers fly overhead and artillery's raining death down on them. It's all adding to the immersion of the game. And I think in this respect, Shadow Empire is, in certain circles, people recognize it. I was talking to a developer of it's a famous XCOM mod, basically, the original XCOM. And he's a developer who I respect his opinion very much. He's very, very intelligent. And his mod particularly is just an exemplary mod. It's one of the best mods I've ever played of any game ever. And when I learned that he was playing Shadow Empire and he was liking it, I asked him what it was he liked about it. One of the first things he said was, I really, really like the graphics. He said, it's one of the first games I've played in years where I've seen that the developer has put a real effort into the intricate immersion level of the game. So all these different asset types, all the different unit types, they're all got their own individual model. They're all, it's all there presented for the player. And he said with a game this complicated, it's really, really important to build on that imagination layer. And when you add this to the RPG elements in the game, it really goes to flesh Shadow Empire out to be more than just a 4X game or more than just a war game. It really is this tool for bringing the player in, and from the top down level where you're looking over the table of this kind of tabletop war game, and that now you're moving down, you're into the city, you're one of these workers working in these factories, struggling to survive in this crazy apocalyptic land, or you're a soldier fighting on the front line, or you can see the aircraft flying overhead. So I think that Shadow Empire really truly is a remarkable game, and I feel that the graphics are much maligned actually, and it is a shame that the stratagem cards, with the way that they are done, is a little bit kind of out of sync with the rest of the game. However, I think that too much effort put into this would have taken away development time from the rest of the game, and I think VR Designs is mostly just one guy, if I'm remembering right. I think Vic does most of this himself with some art assets he's likely, hired from other people. So, it's always going to be a balancing act with an indie game like this. And I think that there is some fair criticism to be made of the graphics in Shadow Empire, no doubt. However, I think overall, as an overall product, I think that the effort that has gone into the graphics in Shadow Empire is very, very high. And I really wish that other 4X games and other war games put as much effort into the details of the graphics in that respect, because these aren't just, these aren't just kind of dry strategy games. They're also there to kind of bring you in the immersion layer. When you think about how the way that tabletop miniatures games do this is, the players are sat there and they're painting the miniatures up, and they're learning about the things that they're painting and the models and the troops that they're fielding on the table. And I think Shadow Empire's way of doing this is with with these really nice little graphics. And also there's other stuff as well, like the detail of the model design. Traditional 4X games will often do this with having unit designing of their own, so kind of ship designers in things like Master of Orion, or whether it's in a game like Fallen Enchantress where you've got the ability to create your own troops and give them their own armor and magical effects and this kind of thing. There are different tools that games use in order to bring you down to that miniature level, so that the player is kind of immersed in this world that he's actually playing in, rather than just being this kind of guy sat there peering over a chessboard. But Shadow Empire's way is really, really interesting, and there are other things that we can talk about on this topic, but I'm going to hand it over to you now, guys. What is it that you think about the graphics in Shadow Empire? Do you see what I'm seeing with this, layer of intricacy with the depth of the graphics? Or do you think that it's, you hate it and you try to model as much of it out as possible? Do you find the map as easy to read as I do? And do you think it's as beautiful as I think it is? Or do you think I'm overstating it? Let me know in the comments, guys, and I'm going to hand it over to you.